Do you think we have had such a major effort to improve relations between Western Europe and Libya over the last couple of decades? It has been because of Libya's energy role, not just oil, but also gas. On the other hand, this is common throughout the region. And the point is, we're now reaching the stage where you have to balance Western interests that are commercial with Western interests that are political. And the creation not just of stable governments that can control their countries, but stable societies that actually wish to engage with the rest of the world on equal terms.
So what happens to the oil supply during this violence in Benghazi and Tripoli? And we are seeing that violence escalate quite considerably. Gaddafi, apparently, his forces are now no longer in control in Benghazi. There is a report of rioting in Tripoli. We could be seeing perhaps it's early to say early days, but we could be seeing some serious changes in Tripoli. How would that affect the oil flow to Europe?
It could affect the oil flow to Europe very quickly in terms of the fact that you could get key oil facilities that were cut off, pipelines that were blown up, or indeed terminals that were seized by the rebels. The key question, though, is what physical damage is done to major installations. If you have a repeat of the Iranian Revolution of 78, 79, the long period of strikes, or the Venezuelan strikes, then you get a permanent deterioration in the ability to produce and export crude. If, on the other hand, it's quick and there's not much damage to facilities, then the new government, of whatever shade of opinion it is, will need to keep up and to resume exporting at the highest level possible, simply to get the revenues.
All right, we've got to leave it there. Unfortunately, run out of time. John, thanks very much for joining us. Quick amendment to a development we brought you earlier. The Libyan official who resigned on AlJazeera Arabic was a diplomat rather than ambassador. Let's recap what's happening there. Clashes are reported to have broken out between pro and anti-government protesters in the centre of Libya's capital, Tripoli. There are also reports of gunshots, and they come as Libyan security forces continue their crackdown on demonstrators. They fired again on mourners at a funeral for protesters killed in the last few days of unrest in Benghazi. We're also hearing reports that there are no troops left on the streets of Benghazi. But in the last few days, at least 200 people have been killed there. Libya is just one country caught up in the wave of unrest sweeping right across the Maghreb into the Middle East. As you can see here, the protests that began in Tunisia and Algeria before moving to Egypt have now engulfed many countries in the region. Morocco, 2,000 people gathered in the capital Rabat, demanding that King Mohammed give up some of his powers. They also want him to act and clamp down on government corruption. In Djibouti, protesters have clashed with police this weekend as they called on their president to step down. Unemployment in this tiny Horn of Africa state stands currently at about 60%. In Iran, the daughter of former President Rafsanjani was arrested and later released for attending one of several banned opposition rallies. And in Yemen, pro and anti-government groups have been throwing stones at each other on what is now the 9th day of protests against the President Saleh, and they want him to quit. He, meanwhile, has appeared before thousands of his supporters in the capital. Hashim Al-Habara has more from Sana'a.
President Saleh had two messages to the pro-democracy protesters. One, he's ready to talk to them. Two, there's no way he can allow them to bring about change by taking to the streets. Let's listen to what he had to say.
If the demands of the protesters are legitimate, we are ready to listen to their demands. We have to assume our responsibilities and courageously seek dialogue. It is the best way, not destruction or blocking the roads or killing people or targeting public and private properties.
Here in the capital, Sana'a, thousands of students decided to start a sitting outside the campus of the university to enforce change. In the city of Taiz, which has become the epicenter of the pro-democracy movement, thousands are converging on the main streets to build up more momentum for their demands for President Saleh to go. In the city of Aden, A senior member of the secessionist movement has been arrested. Pro-independence calls are considered a red line here in the capital, Sana'a. The government has been saying over the last few days that calls for independence in the south won't be tolerated.
That was Hashim Al-Habara. Protesters in Bahrain are digging their heels in. They've set up camp in the capital, Manama. Hundreds of people spent the night in Pearl Square after the government ordered the military to pull out. James Bayes reports from the capital.
They are determined to make this a permanent place of protest. A day after the army and police withdrew, the area around Pearl Roundabout has become a tented city with free food, water and electricity. The protesters are pitching camp and they say they won't leave until they get what they want.
Zain al-Abidin down, Mubarak down, Al-Khalifa down, down, down.
Can the king make political concessions, or is it too late?
It is too late now. Now people, you can hear them. They want to change all the government. They want a new government. They want to choose by themselves. They want election.
I'm sure we all want reforms. However, we all are humans. We all have interests. I am not there to tell you what your interests are, but it is important that we have continuity in our work.
The Bahrain government says it's opening a dialogue with the people. But one opposition politician visiting the roundabout was told very clearly he should not enter into any negotiations. A politician who talks to the royal family, he was told, has the blood of those who died on his hands.
As you see, the changes here are dramatic changes. You cannot expect what will happen. Of course, the initiatives from the youth here will not stop.
There seems to be a disconnect between the opposition politicians and the views of these people. They say they don't want this government at all, and many say they want the king to leave the country. James Bayes, AlJazeera, Bahrain.
A series of attacks on taxi drivers and their passengers have left 12 dead in the Mexican resort of Acapulco. Police say 4 suspects have been arrested. Taxi drivers have often been targeted for extortion or recruited by gangs to act as lookouts to transport drugs. Pressure is increasing on Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez, and it's coming from the opposition coalition in the country's new National Assembly. Chavez and his allies were able, though, to push through any legislation with their majority, but now the opposition has 65 seats, enough to have a say in passing and thus blocking laws.